Good morning. Today is Tuesday. Today we read from Acts 25, 1 through 12. 3 days after Festus had arrived in the province, he went up to Jerusalem from Caesarea. And the chief priests and the principal men of the Jews laid out their case against Paul, and they urged him, asking as a favor against Paul that he summon him to Jerusalem, because they were planning to kill him on the way in an ambush. Festus replied that Paul was being kept at Caesarea and that he himself intended to go there shortly. So, he said, let the men of authority among you go down with me, and if there's anything wrong about the man, let them bring charges against him. After he stayed among them not more than 8 or 10 days, he went down to Caesarea, and the next day he took his seat on the tribunal and ordered Paul to be brought. When he had arrived, the Jews who had come down from Jerusalem stood around him, bringing many and serious charges against him that they could not prove. Paul argued in his defense, neither against the law of the Jews, nor against the temple, nor against Caesar have I committed any offense. But Festus, wishing to do the Jews a favor, said to Paul, do you wish to go up to Jerusalem and there be tried on the charges before me? But Paul said, I'm standing before Caesar's tribunal, where I ought to be tried. To the Jews I've done no wrong, as you yourself know very well. If then I am a wrongdoer and have committed anything for which I deserve to die, I do not seek to escape death. But if there is nothing to their charges against me, no one can give me up to them. I appeal to Caesar. Then Festus, when he had conferred with his council, answered, to Caesar you have appealed, to Caesar you shall go. So Paul has kind of an ace up his sleeve. See, he appeals to Caesar. He knows that the Jews are going to kill him if he's sent to Jerusalem. He'll be ambushed on the way and he'll be killed. He knows that. He knows that he can get basically free passage to Rome if he appeals to Caesar, and that's part of his plan. He knows that if he appeals to Caesar, he will get eventually to stand before Caesar and witness about the faith, and that's another part of his plan. If he could only convert the emperor, think about that. That takes several hundred years for that to happen, but that's still part of Paul's objectives. Festus, who's more interested in keeping the peace with the Jews than anything else, is kind of back and forth, but Paul appeals to Caesar, so okay, we'll let him go to Caesar. Fine. Get him out of here. He won't be on my plate, on my agenda, my docket. He won't be my problem anymore. That's the way that Festus wants it. That's the way that Paul wants it, actually, too, because that way he can be out of this place and off to the big city and the real world. Sometimes people want to go off to the big city from small towns, and they don't want to stay in this little town where there's nothing happening. We moved to one very small town, and a young man came up to me and said, I've been trying to get out of this town my whole life. Why in the world would you move back here, or would you move here from a big city? And I said, well, I think you'll find in the big city that everything is expensive and you don't do all the things that you think you're going to do anyway. So why not live in a small town? And he didn't buy it, but I noticed that in 3 years he was back. So there is something about the small towns. But nonetheless, Paul wants to go to Rome, which is sort of the equivalent of Paris or New York City or something. It's where the action is. And so off he goes. Sometimes we're like that, too. We think, well, nothing good can happen in a small town. Everything good can happen in a small town. And from small towns, it can grow into bigger towns and different towns and then neighboring towns. And pretty soon, you're changing the world. You don't have to be in a big city or big important places or in a big church to see radical change happen. You just have to stay with it and be faithful and pray. So that is our word today. Now, he's not going to leave immediately. He's appealed to Caesar. He's still got a couple of more things to do here in Caesarea, but he will eventually get going, and we will read about all of his adventures over the next week or so. For now, keep the faith and be happy with where you are.